Recording in progress.
Good afternoon
and welcome to the Cabinet meeting today. I'm Councillor Chori Makubri and I'm the leader of the Council.
Which is a hybrid meeting. The meeting will be live streamed and recorded and will be available for viewing after the meeting. Should the live streaming fail, the meeting will continue and a recording will be available through the Council's website following the conclusion of the meeting. Can I remind members that translation facilities are available and for those attending on Zoom to choose the language of your choice. For those wishing to speak in the chamber, please raise your hand. For those on Zoom, please use the raise hand function. We will alternate between speakers in the chamber and on Zoom. For those attending remotely, please note that those in the chamber will be able to use the chat facility. Committee members who are attending remotely are required to leave their camera on throughout the debate and when voting in order to maintain the integrity of the decision-making process. If you do need to leave the meeting temporarily, pop a message in the chat function so the Democratic Services Officer is aware, and then let us know when you return. I expect everyone present and participating in this meeting to conduct themselves appropriately and be respectful to each other. That applies to members, officers, and anyone in the public gallery. So we'll move on to agenda item 1, which is apologies for absence.
Apology for absence from Amanda Hughes.
Okay, no other apologies. So agenda item 2, Declaration of Interest Code of Local Government. Members are reminded that they must declare the existence and nature of their declared personal interest. Would any member like to declare an interest? I have spoke to the monitoring officer about this, but I just want to note that my youngest son was at Arias High School until this term. He won't be going back to school after the summer. So the advice I've had is it's not an interest, but I just want to declare that because I have previously stepped out of meetings involved where Arias was involved. So just for noting. My
grandson attends the school Arias.
Matt, do you want to give some advice on that?
I think if a specific school is impacted by a decision, then that it would be wise to declare a personal prejudicial interest if it's specific to the school that your grandson attends.
Just the school Arias.
Okay, so prejudicial interest for you, Liz. Councillor Jeff.
I'm the same chair leader. But I don't think it might come up. But if it does come up, I will then say at the time. That's okay. Sorry, Brunellian School I'm talking about. But it shouldn't be coming in.
There's no specifics about Brunellian. It's just specific to the school. Sorry, Mark.
Yeah, it's specific there, isn't it? In respect of the outline programme that Arias is specifically mentioned there. And your school loans, isn't it?
I'll call on the chief exec.
Yeah, I take it if it's a specific item within the agenda, it's a prejudicial interest and you should leave for that item. Yeah.
Bromley?
Yeah, one of my granddaughters attends Aberconwy.
Okay. So we're all clear on where our relatives all go to school and whether that's an impact. Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay. So we'll move on to agenda item 3, which is urgent matters. I'm not aware of any. No. So agenda item 4 is minutes of the cabinet to approve and sign as a correct record the minutes of the previous meeting, which are on pages 4 to 8. Members, if there's any issues arising from the meeting, if not, if you're happy with them, could I have a proposer to accept them? Councillor Nigel, could I have a seconder? Councillor Penny, beat you to it. Liz, can we show we're in favour of accepting the minutes? Okay, thank you all. So agenda item 5 is announcements by the leader. I'd just like to record my thanks for all our staff, the incredible amount of hard work they put in managing the general election campaign. So professionally, it's a huge logistical challenge, especially given the unexpected date that it went ahead. So, you know, they did a fantastic job as always. And I'd like to offer my thanks and best wishes to both our outgoing MPs, David Jones and Robert Miller, and wish them all the best for the future. And I would, of course, like to congratulate our new MPs, Claire Hughes and Jill German. I very much look forward to meeting them as soon as they get their busy schedules sorted out and they settle in. And clearly, we want to work together for the better of our residents moving forward. So that's all from me. So agenda item 6 is announcements by the Chief Executive.
Yeah, just I'd like to echo really my personal thanks to the staff who were involved in the election. I'm amazed sometimes about the amount of work that such a small team can get through. So we are a very small core election team of 1.8. Don't ask me about the 1.8. It doesn't mean that they're that small or anything like that. It's 1.8 full-time equivalents. I just checked between the date of the announcement of the election and the election, there were 4,000 extra registrations they had to deal with in that period. They also had thousands of extra postal votes that they had to deal with, never mind the cross-boundary issues that are always an issue, when you move across local authorities. So we couldn't do it without that small team, but also the wider Democratic Services team that, they took over 1,000 phone calls, I think, up to before the day of the poll. And when you look at the size of the team, it's tinier. The local authorities have big teams that deal with phone calls in their call centres. We deal with it ourselves. But what I would like to emphasise is because of that personal touch and the experience and knowledge they have, they gave a fantastic service to the residents in terms of answering their questions. So a big, big thank you to all the team and also for everybody who worked very late that night. Still getting over it personally. It's not used to getting it, but staying up all night and missing a night's sleep. So no, really a whole team effort, and it was brilliant to see. So thank you very much, everyone.
Okay, Diolch, Green. So agenda item 7 is to review the Cabinet Forward Work Programme. That's on pages 9 to 45, members. Are there any questions or observations on that? If not, can I just show we're happy to accept that item, please? Okay, so the first substantive item sits in mine and Julie's portfolio, school bridging loan application. So those members who've declared an interest. Okay, members. So this report is in pages 46 to 50. As I've stated, it sits between Julie and mine portfolio in terms of the education portfolio and the finance involved. So we know last year was a very difficult year for schools. We increased their cash increase of 4.9%, which equated to 3.7 million. But the actual pressures they were facing, mostly around pay and service demand, was actually in the region of 7.8 million. So we know they've had to make some really difficult choices, as have we, to set out a balanced budget. And as part of that, we wanted a process to help those schools transition as they try to make changes within their budget. And this is essentially what this procedure was set up to do. There are a couple of specific proposals here which members are being asked to vote for, but I will transfer over to the education portfolio holder, Julie, to take us through the rest of the report. So, Julie.
Thanks, Leader. Yes, obviously, back in January, we had the discussion around looking at the program of approval for loans for schools. You will recall that up to 100,000 has been delegated. That's a decision with the strategic director, head of education and finance, and myself and the leader, or the post holders of cabinet member for education and cabinet member for finance. Anything over 100,000 then goes to the schools loans panel, which you'll see as part of this report that we had 2 schools that came along to that panel. That was Ysgol Aberconwy and Ysgol Eirias. They both requested loans over 100,000. And I just have to comment, myself and Charlie have met with a number of the head teachers and I have continued through the year. They've worked incredibly hard to get to this position. I sit on the redundancy panels. I know that both these schools have gone through really significant financial planning And it's amazing really that they've got to this point to reduce this figure down as they have. And you'll see on page 47 that Ysgol Aberconwy have requested a loan of 200,000 repayable over a 5-year term. And Ysgol Eirias have requested a loan of 351,000 also repayable over a 5-year term. So as I said, all that work that has gone in to get them to this point has to be well commended. It's hard to see and hear head teachers, and I know one of the head teachers that we visited was having sleepless nights trying to find a way of balancing the budget, but doing it in such a way that meant that they could continue to provide an excellent education for their pupils, and that's what both these schools have done. So I'm happy to propose that we go with the recommendation of the school loans panel. You'll find recommendations bottom of page 41 that the Cabinet approves the loan request of 200,000 to Ysgol Aberconwy as recommended by the loans panel, and at the top of page 47 that Cabinet approves the loan request of 351,000 to Ysgol Eirias, again approved by the school loans panel. And there was a lot of discussion looking at how schools are planning to repay that. One school starts 25-26, one school starts 26-27, and that's in part to give them time for those redundancies to find their way through so that those savings can be found at the school. So yeah, I'm happy, Leader, that we support the recommendations. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Chris, you're happy?
Yeah, I'm happy to support Councillor Julie with that. I think it's important that we support these schools, and this is exactly what these bridging loans are for. So this is the purpose, and they proved that they need it, and they can have the recovery plans in place to sort out the finances in due course. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Emily.
Yeah, I'm very happy to support this. It's obviously gone through a lot of work, and I just wanted to say a big thanks to everyone who has put the work into this, because I remember at one point last year we were talking about half the schools that may end up presenting. So there's obviously been an enormous amount of work done within the schools to be able to kind of balance their budgets with only the 2 schools that are coming forward with this, and for very good reasons. So yeah, very happy to support it, but just wanted to highlight the work that must have gone on in all the schools in order to get them to this position.
Okay. I'd also like to record my thanks to the 3 members of Finance and Resources who sat on the school loans panel, who looked in depth at the sort of plans they've got, that these are realistic proposals moving forward, and Gareth Jones as the chair. I think it's really good to get backbenchers involved, and they have endorsed this is, and the education, yeah, exactly. So we will, as always, continue to try and find solutions. But if there's no more questions or observations, we have a proposer and we have a seconder. Would members show if they're in favour of accepting the recommendation? Okay, can we get our other 2 members in? Thanks, Emily. Okay, welcome back, members. We'll move on to agenda item 9, which sits within the education portfolio. It's Sustainable Communities for Learning. The report's on pages 51 to 108, and I'll go back to Julie to take this.
Thank you, Leader. So Cabinet will be aware that we've had many discussions over the years of what was the 21st century schools, and now we know as the Sustainable Communities for Learning. Welsh Government have requested that all local authorities provide them with a 9-year strategic outline programme, referred to as the SOP, identifying areas and projects that they would like to develop as part of the Sustainable Communities for Learning programme. The Sustainable Communities for Learning programme will transition away from the fixed bands that we've had before, so the Band A, Band B, and will now become a 9-year rolling programme, a more agile rolling programme. Although the SOP will focus on the plans for years 1 to 9, a review will take place every 3 years to evaluate the programme. And I think it's really important that we bear that in mind, that whilst we have suggestions here today for where we're at currently, there will be opportunity to look at that as we move forward. It may be that our priorities change. My hope is that perhaps there will be more money available. That means we can expand on what we have currently here today. So on the 10th of October, you'll recall that Cabinet approved the outcome of the priority exercise to reduce programme commitment and deliver priority projects. So that was when we looked at that dashboard of scoring around the areas. The Sustainable Community Learning programme is part funded by the Welsh Government, and you can see in 1.11 the most recent match funding rate. So for mainstream schools, Welsh Government provide a contribution of 65%, and it's for us to find 35%. And for special schools and pupil referral units, Welsh Government provide a contribution of 75%, and Conway would find 25%. There's still some talk around the MIM funding, the mutual investment model. I think we're yet to sort of see where that's up to, really. That was the model that we were looking at previously, but as the cost has increased across the board, they've wanted projects to be much larger in order to make it financially viable for the company that was appointed. And that was an 81% contribution for Welsh Government, 19% for us. So it may be as we move forward, we could look at that again, but it's something that's still there. And I guess we wait for updates. And individual projects will require both approval from us as a council and Welsh Government before we can commence with any project. If you go to page 53, you'll see that the SOP provides a summary of the focus of the programme, and that is that the two schools, Ysgol Gogath and Ysgol Eirios, are proposed to be the focus of the initial 3 years, with a further two school areas in years 4 to 6, and that's Ysgol Dyganwy and Ysgol Llanfyddachan. Well, not Ysgol Llanfyddachan, but the area of Llanfyddachan, which is currently Pantryfedyn and Babanod. Followed by an area review of Llandudno schools in years 7 to 9. And you can see those projects detailed in section 8 of the programme. So yeah, and if you go to page 59, you'll see the full SOP, which you've hopefully all had an opportunity to look at. But like I said, things will move and change, and the hope is that this will become something that, well, I want to say the minister, things are in a bit of a precarious position today, but the current education minister, which hopefully this will be an area of priority for her going forward, and she'll come forward with a plan of sorts. I know there was some talk with the new government in Westminster when they were elected that they're going to prioritise, or they want to prioritise school buildings. So it may be that there will be some money that will come forward as part of that. But as I said, those are the areas that we have in the SOP currently. If I take you to recommendations on page 52, that subject to consideration of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee recommendation, which was to approve that the Cabinet approve Conway's Sustainable Communities for Learning Strategic Outline Programme. And obviously over time, this will come back. Any decision that's taken on any of these areas will have to come to us for approval before then, but this is the SOP as it stands currently, so I'm happy to recommend that, Leader. Thank you.
Okay, Julie, thanks for taking us through that report. Members, any questions? Councillor Nigel.
Thank you, Leader. Well, whilst I recognise that, there's a change here to the SOP, I just have to question Kimmel Bay School. Towern and Kimmel Bay School was one of the schools that was at the front of the previous scheme for a replacement joint school. Now it's not even listed in the proposals coming forward. And I question the reasons why a brand new school like Gogarth is listed there for having further money spent on it, when we've got a building which was probably built in the 1920s, 30s. It's got to be one of the least energy efficient properties in our portfolio of schools, and yet it's not down for a new build, and I do question that.
So obviously we went through a scoring programme. In terms of Ysgol Gogath, that is around capacity issues. So the school, when it was built, whilst it's a new school, it was built for around 180 pupils. We currently have around 270 pupils. The library had to be converted to a classroom. We have a number of mobile classrooms. The leader and I, on our last visit, those classrooms are not appropriate going forward. They need to be addressed before they get into a position where they're unusable, really. So, and the cost of placing children, as well as for them themselves and not being within their friendship group and close to home, but the cost of placing them out of county is considerable. And we have a statutory responsibility to provide that special education. So we have to look at GOGATH, but we are on the other hand as well looking at the possibility of what we have currently, which has been a really successful programme of some of GOGATH pupils attending Ysgol John Bright. So it may be that we can offer satellite, and I know that the team are looking at that going forward, whether there's an opportunity to do that. But currently, we've seen demand grow year on year, and it's not unique to Conway, that's across the whole of Wales, well, the whole of the UK. So we have to address that. So that's why it has to be a priority for us. Then in terms of we had a number of schools within the Band B programme where it was separate infants and juniors. That was one of the things that we wanted to look at. And I appreciate that we're not in a position financially to be able to do new builds currently there, but we are looking at those schools and ways of those schools working together moving forward. Obviously, I don't want to go into great detail here, but that's something that will come through. I know it's going to come through scrutiny. That those schools, we're looking at opportunities there for them to work more closely together or to even join forces. So, and as I said before, it really does come down to money. And whilst a school from the 1920s is quite an old school, we have schools from even longer ago than that. A number of them. It's one of the reasons that Llandudno will be looked at, because those schools were built. A number of them were built in the Victorian period. So. Yeah, it's not easy. In an ideal world, we'd have a new school for all the schools that are there. And I appreciate that they're not energy efficient, but there are things that John and the team are doing, excuse me, around replacement lighting. We had a pilot program for solar panels, and that's being widened across some others of our schools. So we're doing everything that we can in the financial restraints that we have. So, but yeah, I take on board what you're saying, but yeah, we are where we are. We have to make the best of the situation, really. Thanks.
Just bring forward Cheryl, and obviously Abigail also was on the Band B. I'm a governor there. Something I was really keen. There's a huge amount of work went in there, planning and identifying and liaising with the school. So it is disappointing, but it's absolutely clear that this is about money. There's been a lack of capital investment in schools, lack of investment in councils for the last 14 years. We've seen a tripling of the costs. So Abigail was originally valued at, I think it was 9 million. It's now 30 million pounds. There's been no increase in the funding window. So clearly, we're all disappointed where we thought we were going to get something, and then it's not going to happen. I think we can mitigate in certain ways. What has been valuable for me, Nigel, is actually getting out and seeing some other schools, because some of them are in a really, really poor condition, and that's the 59 schools across the authority, give or take some of the newer ones. There's not been enough building, there's not been enough money to do the work, so it is disappointing. But we rely on capital. The percentages are there for the actual funding, but also the capital funding we get every year to do all our projects has been reduced year on year. So, we have to cut our cloth accordingly. Whilst I'm disappointed, I think the process has been fair. I think it's identified the really pressing areas that we need to look at. If more money came along, I'm confident that the work that had been done in Abigail is there. It's been done. It could be dusted off if somebody finds 30 million knocking about somewhere. And as Julie said, there will be 3-year reviews, so we can be a bit more reactive to what the needs are and what we can do. So I remain disappointed, but I think it's a fair process, and this is the best we can do in the sort of funding constraints that we've got. But with that thing that we will continue to look and continue to work with our schools moving forward. So that's my little bit off my chest. I'm Councillor Cheryl, and then Councillor Chris.
Thanks, Leader. So you've got your bit off your chest. I'll do mine now. One comment and one question. Ysgol GOGATH, isn't it incredibly frustrating that despite all our representations to the Welsh Government that Ysgol Gogarth was not built correctly, was not future-proofed. I can't think of how many times we told the Welsh Government ministers that the need for this school was far, far bigger. And look at the waste of public money now and the disruption to those children that very least need the disruption. It's unforgivable, it really is. And they should have built it the correct size in the first place. Okay, that was the bit on Gogarth. In terms of areas, Councillor Nigel's touched on it. That's now moved into the first tranche of work to be done. Is that purely because of this asbestos issue, the lack of maintenance? And the second part of that question, how is this going to tie in with the RLDP, with the need for schools in the RLDP areas moving up ahead of Deganwy and Llanfyfechan? Diolch.
John, do you want to take that question?
Thanks, Councillor Cheryl. I'm not on the screen, but I am here, honestly, in person. So just quickly on your Gogarth point, Welsh Government, and it's something that all local authorities, not just us, have been discussing with them when they're looking at lessons learned. So in the Band B and now their 9-year rolling programme, they are now allowing us to build schools up to 10% more than the actual pupil numbers that we have on currently on our school sites. So that's good. It wouldn't have even been enough for Gogarth either. So we would have been in a similar scenario anyway at Gogarth. So that's that one. With regards to Eirias, lack of maintenance and stuff, perhaps it would be difficult. It is a substantial amount of work required there. We're talking about looking at asbestos in a whole block, and the removal of it when we were looking at it was currently costed at around £2 million. Now, whilst we were in discussion with Welsh Government, they've shared, well, would you be better to look at a new facility as a whole rather than have a like-for-like facility once the work of removing asbestos has been carried out, which we agree with. And that's something that we've brought forward to our Education and Social Care Capital Board, had that discussion with the school and the board, and that's why Eirias is in as a priority school for us. The school, I believe, have mothballed now that A block. So we're in a good position with regards to moving forward with that project. Difficult with regards to financially managing this program as well. We'd probably like to do all the projects in years 1 to 3, if we had the capacity within the team to deliver it and we had the financial resources in front of us. However, we think that we have put a realistic, achievable programme together over those 9 years. And we are not saying that we don't want to do anything in Llanfyfechan or Deganwy. We've worked closely with James Harland and his team with regards to the LDP, and we're confident that interlines and is running parallel with James's RLDP team's work.
So James Harland is online. Is there anything you wanted to add to that, James?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I think just to reiterate what John's already said. So we've got reports coming through the political process. They went to pre-scrutiny the other day to do with health impact and education impact in particular. So we've looked at population and housing impact in terms of the impact from pupils on schools throughout the county borough. So that will be included in the statement of common ground, which we've got coming through the political process. And as John said, we've worked pretty closely to get an understanding of what we need to do in terms of mitigation for education across the whole of the plan period up to 2033. So that work will be coming through the political process within the next 2 to 3 weeks and through this cabinet.
Julie, did you want to add something to that?
Yeah, just a sort of final point really around this, in so much as I think the lessons that I've learned over the recent years is that we've had probably 7 years, 6 or 7 years of the planning for the Band B. And actually, I think it is better to start with this that's achievable and then hope to expand on that, as opposed to raising expectation. You mentioned in Abergele, I know that was the case in Deganwy. in Gimel Bay, in numerous areas, and I went along to the consultations with the community there. So, you know, it is raising that expectation and then having to dial back. I think this is a sensible position that then we can hopefully look at perhaps some of those other areas. Excuse me again. So yeah, I think that's why this feels appropriate. Whilst others might think, why are we not including everything? I think we just have to manage that until we have a clearer picture of where we're going to be financially. And in 3 years, we might be in a much better position. I'm ever the optimist, but yeah, hopefully.
Is that okay, Cheryl? Thank you. I've got Councillor Chris.
Yes, thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. Fortunately, you brought in James Harlan then, who said more or less what I was going to say about the replacement local development plan. And the fact that there's been this very intense joint working between the strategic planners and the education services team, because we've got to align them, haven't we? We've got to align the Sustainable Communities for Learning programme with the replacement local development plan. The RLDP goes up to 2033, so we're talking about the same time span. And we know, as Julie has said, we will have to undertake reviews because things will change. And you know, I'm really pleased that that's written into this report, because the replacement local development plan will allocate and safeguard land for new schools and extensions if we need them. And you know, the Section 106 monies will be there to seek financial contributions from the new housing sites. So that's all part of this work. And James is quite right. The paper concerning the educational impact and mitigation of the population change we're thinking about, and the new housing that is proposed will be coming to Economy in Place next week. So the timescale, you know, we're going from one of these meetings considering this to the next. So next week that will be going to overview and scrutiny, and then it'll be coming to cabinet very soon after that. So there is a real momentum, Leader, with this. Thank you.
Like a real momentum.
If nobody seconded Julie, I'm happy to second Julie.
Julie, can you just check? Not sure if you actually proposed it. You did propose it. That's fine. So we've had a proposer and a seconder. Before we go to the vote, members, any other questions, comments, or observations? No, if we can show for in favour then of accepting the recommendation. Okay, Jill Pub. So item DEG, Culture Governance and IT Portfolio. It's the Welsh Language Standards Annual Report. You'll find that on pages 109 to 138. Cynhara Ddaron.
Diolch. Dwi'n mynd I fod yn cyflwyno yn y Gymraeg.
I'll be speaking in Welsh. The purpose of this report is to demonstrate to which degree the Council has complied with Welsh language standards in 2023 to 2024. This is a statutory requirement for us as a Council. I'm pleased to say that during this period, we are compliant with every one of the 167 Welsh language standards. The Welsh language is at the heart of all aspects of Conwy Council. The Welsh Language Service and the Translation Service, under the leadership of Nia Llwyd, continues to promote the language successfully in the Council and across the county. And it's great to see as well from the report how many members of staff are setting about learning the Welsh language. You'll also see from the report all of the work that different departments within the Council are undertaking to promote the Welsh language. I'd like to thank them for all of the things that they're doing and their positivity towards the Welsh language. So the recommendations are for us to approve this report, and I'm very pleased to propose. Thank you.
Aaron, members, any comments or observations? Cynhara, please.
Diolch yn fawr iawn, Cynghorydd Aron.
Thank you very much, Councillor Aaron. I'm happy to
please.
To second the proposal, please.
Diolch.
Okay, members. Really pleasing to see we meet all the standards. It's something that we're all absolutely committed to. It's really rewarding to see more and more members getting involved, as well as our officers, and sort of trying to use Welsh more and more in their everyday, which is fantastic, and that can only grow. I think lots of really good examples. So yeah, no idea in that. So if we've no other speakers, members, we've had a proposal, we've had a seconder. Can we show if we're in favour? Wonderful. So the second part is with Cynhorod Aaron. It's the new Welsh language promotion strategy in Llais Cymraeg. Aaron?
Diolch. Or os ar yr un thema.
Thank you. So staying on the same theme here, the Welsh language. So this is our Welsh language strategy, Ein Llais Cymraeg, or our Welsh voice. So the aim of the strategy is to offer a framework for members and staff to create a bilingual county of Conwy. It builds on our previous good practice, and it incorporates our learning for our Leading in a Bilingual Country programme. And I'd like to thank Fran Lewis, Matt Georgiou and Andy Wilkinson for their input into this strategy. Our strategy has been informed by Welsh speakers and Welsh learners to shape our new direction, and I'm really pleased to support this. I'd also like to thank Councillors Gwenno Ellis and Louise Emery for their support too. The Welsh language belongs to all of us. It doesn't belong anymore to me as it does to anybody else. It belongs to us all. And therefore, we all have a duty to create a Conwy where the Welsh language can thrive. And I hope that this will be the appropriate aim of this strategy. I believe that this is an ambitious strategy, which will hopefully support other organisations within the county to reverse the recent fall seen in the numbers and percentage of Welsh speakers in Conwy. Before I finish, I'd just like to thank Nia Llwyd and Eluned Davies and all council staff supporting promotion of the Welsh language in the council on a day-to-day basis. And I would like to propose that we accept the recommendations, Chair.
Okay, diolch am Cynhorod Gromwy.
Thank you to Aaron for the report and the officer, and I'd like to second the proposal.
Liz.
This is excellent practice, and I think that I would like the media to take hold of this really, because it is excellent work that's been done by the department. We've got our communities out there. They are people that move into the area so willing to learn the language. And I'm just so proud of what people are wanting to do. So I do hope that the media want to publish what we are doing here in Conwy, because I think it's excellent work that's been carried out. Thank you very much.
Chris.
Following on from Cynhorod Liz there, we know that demand for Welsh medium education provision is going up. And that is something that we will be addressing in the replacement local development plan, because I think the Welsh in Education strategic plan has the provision that's needed going up by about 14%. I think that's the percentage. But anyway, there are Welsh Government targets that we've got to fulfil. And I'm looking forward in the future for us to increase our provision. Thank you.
Okay, going to bring the Chief Executive.
Yeah, dim ond ietegu'r hyn sydd wedi cael ei ddeud.
Just to echo the points which have been made, it's a brilliant strategy as far as I'm in the question. It's a new way of presenting and making the Welsh language attractive to be used. And that's what we need to do is, as Aaron mentioned there, we need to make it as though it belongs to all. And then we can put ourselves in a situation where we can encourage and promote the usage of the language, no matter how much they have and they use. The fact that they have the confidence to use what they have is key. Just to share my thanks to Fran, Matt, Andy, Nia, Eluned, for their work, and we had a brilliant presentation in the Managers Forum a couple of weeks ago, where we had a story about the journey of the Welsh language, and it was just brilliant to hear. And bringing things to life and giving people that confidence to use the language is so important in the workforce. So brilliant, thank you.
Strategy 24-26. So that's back to you again, Aaron.
Diolch. This strategy sets out Conwy Council's plan for our internal and external marketing and communications service. The aim of this strategy is to detail how our communications will be delivered in a way that is easy to engage with by our residents, our staff and other partners. It's important that we have a corporate communications strategy, as one of our corporate objectives is to ensure that people in Conwy are informed, included and listened to. The strategy sets out in detail how we will engage with our communities in Conwy to communicate our plans and objectives. As councillors, and especially so cabinet members, I'm sure we often have the curse of knowledge, whereby we incorrectly assume that everyone has access to the same information or is interested in the same information as us. So hopefully this strategy will support our fantastic comms team in relaying the information to our residents about the work that we do, the decisions that we take and the challenges that we face. I'd like to thank Brian Fitzgerald, who's here today, our section head for corporate communications and marketing, and his very small but dedicated comms team for all their hard work and support. The recommendations is that Cabinet approve the communications strategy 24-26, and Brian is here to help answer any questions if there are any. Diolch.
Diolch, Aaron. I'll open up to any questions, comments or observations. Member Gromway.
Yeah, again, thank you for the report. And in this day where there's so much information out there in all sorts of different forms, I think getting the right communication out is crucial for our electorate, for our residents. You know, in the old days when I think most people read the weekly news when we had local reporters, I think we were probably better informed in those days than we are now. We seem to have an awful lot of avenues for communication. A lot of it is misinformation. So it's important that whatever we give out is correct, informative, and it keeps our residents informed of the challenges and the opportunities within the county.
Diolch, Gromway. Liz.
And I just like to thank the officers very much indeed for this communication strategy. Not all of us are clever on social media, but I have to say at the moment, they make it so easy for us as councillors to share that information, because we need to communicate the same as we need to communicate with the public. So I just thank you very much indeed for making it easy for councillors to share the information. Thank you very much.
Councillor Jeff.
Thank you, Leader. I have often brought this up about communications and how much better we could be doing. This is excellent. Really, really appreciate this coming forward. I think it gives us a direction that we've been lacking in the past, and it's something we can be building on. I take on board what Councillor Liz just said also in terms of, educating everybody to actually say this is an important aspect. So very well done, the whole team. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Jeff. I think it's a really good piece of work. Really grateful to our officers for the work they've put in. Really important to remember communication is a two-way thing. It's not just about us getting information out there. It's about hearing the views of residents and be able to interact like that. Social media does bring a lot of advantages, but it can be a channel for disinformation that can be quite difficult to manage. So making sure that whether it's good news or bad news, that it's accurate and it's out there early, stops that disinformation, which ultimately doesn't serve anybody. I think it's a really detailed plan, but I suppose that's what I would emphasize is it's about us listening and us getting that consultation over, so we know that what we're doing is in line with what the majority of our residents want us to do. So there's no more comments with our proposer. Aaron, did we have a seconder? Did I miss it? Jeff, happy to second it. Can we show for in favour then, members? Okay, diolch Aaron. We'll move on to agenda item 11, which sits in the audit policy and performance portfolio. We have the corporate issues register and corporate risk register. Quite a lengthy report, Chris. It's on pages 200 to 302.
Thank you, Leader. Well, the corporate risk register and corporate issues register are reviewed regularly, as we all know. And this is before us today, having already been presented and debated at Finance and Resources Overview and Scrutiny. That was back on 9th April, and Governance and Audit considered it in May. So the whole process has been protracted this time by the general election intervention. As we've done before, external regulators have been invited to provide external challenge to the registers. The corporate issues log is appended to the report and was updated as part of the service performance reviews at the end of 2023 and the beginning of this year. You can see there is a new issue identified at 3.8. I'll just quote that. The Welsh Government funding formula has resulted in Conwy County Borough Council receiving the lowest settlement in Wales for 2024-2025. So that's flagged up there. The corporate issues register summary dashboard is on page 205 and it has a list of 12. Just a reminder that an issue refers to an event that is already with us and management mitigation actions are identified and planned. Turning to risks which have been identified as part of our horizon scanning process, 3.8 lists 2 new risks which have been identified. The first is the risk of service failure due to the inability to replace vehicles. And the second is the risk that Conwy County Borough Council fails to manage its contracts effectively. The key changes which have been made to the corporate risk register follow. Again, there is a summary dashboard on page 248, and that flags up that 42% of risks are critical or major. So I think, Leader, that this all just reflects the complexity and diversity of what we deliver. The landscape, as we know, changes all the time, and hence our actions. We have had a 0.4% population decrease, and our population is an aging one. So this has implications. Well, I don't need to listen. Rural members will know in their areas, falling school numbers. Julie has to cope with that. House prices, and the effect on the private rental sector, all that sort of thing. The fact that the replacement local development plan presently is updating our evidence-based procedures is really useful at this time, as it will inform an effective balance approach going forwards. So we have a present round of service performance reviews, and I've been to nearly all of them, and they show that we are more focused than ever on improving our working practices and outcomes. But Leader, transformation must be adequately resourced, and corporate issue 20 states this. There is a general lack of capacity to support new projects. We know that asset management is one of the it's one of the big pieces of work that really needs to be accomplished with speed and efficiency. Not surprisingly, scrutiny has concerns over the costs between the Health Board and our authority. There are a lot of issues over that. We all know that we have complex individual cases and assessments going on, and these are expensive. And we need to work collaboratively with the Health Board to sort this out. As Cabinet members know, we have a new strategy performance and engagement manager, Yolo McGregor, and he is here somewhere. Where are we? There we are at the back. So I'd like to welcome you, Yolo. Yolo comes very experienced in this work, and I must give my thanks to the team, Janice Martin and the others, for compiling this huge amount of information. So, Leader, the recommendation is on page 201 at 2.3. I'm happy to incorporate the additions coming from Finance and Resources and the Audit and Governance Committees. So this gives a proposal which I support, and I'll just read it out. So A, that further investigation takes place regarding the decrease in population in Conway, and this be heightened in the risk register. B, that it be noted that the speed of service transformation does not support service delivery within a balanced budget, and that corporate issue 20, which is about program management support, be marked as high risk as opposed to medium risk. And thirdly, that subject to these two amendments, the corporate issues and risk registers be adopted by Cabinet today. So those are the three parts of the proposal. Thank you, Leader.
Okay, thank you for taking us through, as you say, Chris, a really detailed report. I'll open up to members for any questions or observations. Nice, Liz.
Thank you very much. There's an awful lot of work that goes into this report, but I find it's a very useful aid memoir because it covers all departments, and so it's there in one document, so that if you want to look anything up, it is there at your fingertips. Some of it not very good news, but stuff that we have to deal with, isn't it, on an everyday basis. So I'd just like to thank the officers for all the work that's gone into this, and to you, Chris, as well, for your portfolio lead on this. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Liz. Members, any other observations, Councillor Cromley? And then Councillor Cromley, then Julie.
Yeah, I think very useful document. One area that does cause me concern coming out of COVID, I think we're still having the hangover of COVID to a degree, and it is put an awful lot of pressure on our staff during COVID and now coming out of COVID and the new ways of working. And I think it's reflected in some of our sickness, absenteeism. So I think there is a piece of work there that we need to look at to make sure that our staff are fully supported, because the efficiency cuts in themselves are putting an awful lot of pressure on departments when resources are limited. So this is an area that I think we have to be very mindful of, that our staff are supported during these difficult times, and what we can do to try and take some of that pressure off them.
Oh my God, Councillor Julie.
Yeah, just a quick point. I think in terms of the issues, you know, the fact that we have a new issue identified there, that the Welsh Government funding formula has resulted in Conway receiving the lowest settlement in Wales. I think it's really important to highlight that again. You know, we've spoken already today about a number of things that come down to finances and how we can move forward. You know, and I said before, in an ideal world, we'd address the things that we'd hoped to historically, and yet we find ourselves in the worst position financially in terms of settlement of all 22 local authorities in Wales. And, you know, that has to change. That can't continue, because how are we supposed to address so many of these things that are an issue? Or, you know, we talk about risk, but it's hard when you can't help but feel that risk log is going to increase year on year if we don't have the finances to address these issues. So yeah, I guess it's just a plea to Welsh Government to look at this again in terms of fairness, and I guess to say to people out there, this is why we can't do everything that we would perhaps like to do, or sometimes things take longer than we hope that they would do, because we are receiving the lowest settlement typically in the whole of Wales. So I just wanted to highlight that, really. Thanks, Leader.
Yeah, thanks, Julie. It's a really good document for me. It highlights a couple of things, that the width and breadth of work we do. It clearly lists the challenges that we face, and as you said, that puts a lot more pressure on our workforce. A lot of it's down to not having sufficient resources, sufficient staff to deliver it. It is a concern that with an elastic band, you can only stretch it so far before it breaks, and we're in a situation where we're having to pull in different directions, trying to deal with these risks. So it's important that they're there. We're not blind to them, and there's mitigation where we can, but ultimately a lot of it is out of our hands. But we have to continue to raise that, continue to fight for a better settlement for Conway, and I guess local government as a whole. It's been very much the forgotten service over the last 14 years, and there needs to be more emphasis put on that across the country, because it's clearly not just a Welsh problem, it's clearly a UK wide problem that services have been hollowed out, and that this is the consequence, I think. But there you go. There's no more comments or observations, members. We've had a proposer and we've had a seconder. Can we show from favour accepting the recommendations? Okay, thank you all. So we're on to item 12, which is approval of local housing market assessment 22 to 2037. That report's on pages 531 to. Oh, apologies, have I missed corporate performance? Apologies, I'm out of sync here. Go on, show me right. Sorry, my apologies. The next agenda item is 11B, which is a corporate plan performance measure proposals for 24 to 25. So it's back to you again, Chris. Apologies.
Thank you, Leader. So this is the corporate plan performance measure proposals for 2024-2025. We all know we have a statutory duty to keep our performance under review in accordance with the Local Government and Elections Wales Act 2021. Our performance measures are reviewed annually and appropriate targets set. So Cabinet will agree that we want to achieve our priorities and focus on improvement. But we've just mentioned the current financial climate in local government, and that has to result in realism to the whole process. So the available resources and capacity have never been so crucial. So we need to keep our corporate plan flexible, and we've just been talking about that. Amanda Hughes mentioned in Finance and Resources last week that we're heading towards another large funding gap. I believe it's 18 million in 2025-2026. So this review process starts with discussions with the leader, relevant cabinet members and the overview and scrutiny chairs. Services proposed changes or removal of measures if they aren't considered meaningful any longer. Details of these with explanations are before you today in the appendix, which I hope is self-explanatory. Proposals for change are in red, and where proposals are made to remove a performance measure, these are denoted in grey. Some measures are not in our control, so no target is set, and in others we need to have a baseline assessment before we go any further. So as scrutiny recognised last week, the list does not comprise everything we do and all the impinging external factors. So Leader, I'm prepared to go through some of the detail, but this has been to overview and scrutiny who had a good look at it. The measure that they commented on was the removal of the commentary measure concerning diversity and democracy. I would just like to flag up that all elected members will know that we have our own diversity and democracy action plan, which we are following and which we are ticking off very successfully as we head up towards the 2027 local government elections. So are you happy for me to go to the recommendations, Leader?
Yes, thank you.
So the recommendation is on page 304 at 2.2, and that is that Cabinet support and recommend to Council, because this has to go on to full Council, the corporate plan performance measures proposals for 2024-25 as outlined in Appendix A. So Cabinet will be aware that the corporate plan report will be going through the democratic process in September, October anyway. So I propose that recommendation, Leader.
Diolch, Chris. Any questions or observations, members? Clara Varron?
Diolch. Just a question on our net zero target is on page 309. I was the one who presented the notice of motion in 2019 to declare a climate emergency, and I'm proud that councillors unanimously backed that motion. However, when I presented that motion, my intention was to task the council with becoming carbon neutral by 2030. Since then, however, I've seen that we now include our supply chain as part of the same target, although that was never my intention. I appreciate we do need to get our supply chain, their carbon emissions down, but I think that should be a separate target. My intention to bring that motion was that we looked internally to bring our carbon emissions down, and I think we should be able to do that by 2030. But I think we are unfairly putting our supply chain as part of this target. So I'm just wondering if we can separate those two things. I'm not sure if that's a question for Yola or Rhyn.
Don't know, Russia wants to, right?
We can look at it, but I suspect we're tied in with the Welsh Government targets, if I remember correctly. So that includes the supply chain. Well, we could realistically split it up. I guess there's nothing stopping us in doing that, but we're tied in with the Welsh Government targets, unfortunately. So that reflects the ask on us, and that post-dates 2019, I guess, which answers your question around why it's together now. I'm happy to be corrected if I'm wrong here, but I'm pretty sure that's the case. Correct.
There are authorities that treat the guidance in different ways. I think the timing of the resolution it did predate Welsh Government guidelines. We waited at the time. The proposal was changed to give a 12-month assessment period, and that was to gain an insight into Welsh Government developing guidance. So the guidance was to include what is 2/3 of, as you quite rightly say, 2/3 are through supply chain, or so we can collect the data separately. We do collect this data separately, but we have followed the guidance. There's a piece of work currently being undertaken at the moment to identify the outcome of those streams of carbon. And I would guess it would be wise to wait for that assessment to be complete to identify what the impacts of the targets that are being set have been for Conway.
Hapus?
Yeah, Hapus, I appreciate there's some gremlins in the system when Geraint was speaking there, but no, I appreciate that. I just didn't want us to unfairly miss the target and us actually doing what we set out to do, and we're just adding adding unfair pressure to ourselves. So if that's the case, then I'm happy with that. Diolch.
Okay. Any other questions or observations, members? So we've had a proposal from Chris that we recommend these to council for consideration. We've got a seconder for that, please. Councillor Penny, can we show for in favour, members? Okay, thank you. So part 3 is the replacement local development plan, affordable housing planning framework and evidence-based papers, which is 3:30 to 5:30, Chris.
Thank you, Leader. This framework comes to Cabinet today, again, slightly delayed by the general election period. It was considered by Economy in Place Overview and Scrutiny last Thursday, and it has already been supported by the Strategic Planning Group. And in fact, Cabinet members will remember that Carol Evans, the Senior Planning Policy Manager, gave us a full presentation at informal Cabinet. So I do not feel we need to ask her to navigate that presentation again today. The housing framework has been part of the RLDP update presentations to elected members and also the town and community councils. As you know, fellow Cabinet members, we are progressing towards the deposit RLDP, and examination in public by the inspector will be later this year, hopefully. This report is a substantial one, as the housing picture in Conway is complex and we need robust, up-to-date evidence, including very technical information. So there are 4 appendices attached. The definition of what affordable housing is in planning terms is covered. It comes from paragraph 4.2.25 of Planning Policy Wales. And Leader, I'm just going to read that out because it is an important definition. So affordable housing is housing where there are secure mechanisms in place to ensure that it is accessible to those who cannot afford market housing, both on first occupation and for subsequent occupiers. This includes both social rented and intermediate housing. Schemes which provide staircasing to full ownership must have arrangements in place to ensure capital receipts are secured to replace affordable housing. I made a request to Economy in Place last week that we didn't delve into site-specific details, as these are not part of this particular piece of work, and I would like to repeat that request today. Elected members will have the final site presentation to look forward to as part of the deposit stage. Now we are looking at policy approaches, really. I'm just going to list a few things that are comprised by the report in front of you and the appendices. So first is how the affordable housing viability assessment has given us target figures for the settlements in each strategic area. These can be seen at 3.22 and have been increased from in some areas compared to the current LDP policy. So I refer you to table 1 on page 338. Then there is the document that the Welsh Government Minister has sent directing us to a 50% on-site assumed starting point. There is contained an importance concerning placemaking, obligations and mitigation. We know that brownfield sites will be prioritised, and we know that site-specific assessments will be done for our proposed RLDP strategic sites, but we will be still aiming for 50% affordable housing. That's including the grant top-up for these. Table 2 at 3.24, page 338, shows indicative levels of grant that will be needed. Elected members know that we will have 100% affordable housing exception sites. The new affordable housing build target figure is 1,500 over the RLDP period, and I must emphasize that this is a minimum figure and it is dependent on grant availability. So the framework will also provide for housing not in the affordable housing category. The plan will provide over the period, and we're talking about an RLDP period of 2018 to 2033, of approximately 4,300 new homes to meet identified need. You can see from the consultation section in the report that production of this framework has involved extensive engagement with RSLs, private developers, of course our own housing service team, and as previously mentioned, the elected members. So, Leader, I welcome all these positive policy approaches, and I hope cost savings will come with a resultant fall in homelessness and a fall in reliance on Conway's costly temporary accommodation. You will see the extent of the work, engagement and collaboration that the team has so ably accomplished. I would like to thank James Harland and his team and Carol Evans. I think both James and Carol are here this afternoon if any detailed explanations are required. But as I say, we've already had a presentation on this. We have a proposed 6-part recommendation, Leader, which is on page 331, and I'm happy to include the slightly amended F item, which I will now read out. So that was amended by scrutiny last week. So we've got F, that delegated authority be given to the head of regulatory services in consultation with the cabinet member for audit policy and performance to make minor amendments to the appendices, including sites details once agreed. So that was the slight amendment that came from scrutiny last week. But the other part, the other 6-part recommendation I would like to propose, if you want me to read it out, all the 6 parts I can do. If that's necessary, I'm looking at Matt
They're in the
here.
They're in the recommendations.
They're there in front of us, aren't they?
Yes,
They're
yes.
in black and white. So yeah, I would like to propose that, Leader.
Again, Chris, thank you for taking us through what is a really excellent, really detailed, complex report, but I think it's really well written. It's really evidence-based, and it really shows engagement and the reasons behind the options that are in there. So yeah, I'll open it up if there's any questions from members or any observations about the report. Emily.
Thanks, Ida. Yeah, I'd just like to second the report, please. I think it's, it is really detailed. It's got to be really detailed. But all the reports that are coming through, hopefully really going to help the real need for affordable housing throughout the county. So all the new stuff that's going through the RLDP process and reports like this with the evidence base that's needed in order to try and really make that increase is really needed. So yeah, very happy to second the report, and thanks for going through in such detail, Chris.
Okay, members, any other comments or observations? Nigel.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. Yeah, affordable housing is something that we desperately need, but we also need other housing generally. We need to promote more building within our county, and specifically talking about the east of the county, where we suffer with flood risk. I once saw a report, and I can't quite remember where, but it was something was done in England where they come to the conclusion that they could not stop or afford to stop building in flood risk areas. Now, if you look at my particular town, Towyn and Kimmel Bay, we haven't been flooded there for over 30 odd years, 35 years now. And yet the moratorium on building of houses in that area has been catastrophic to the economy and has costed the community dearly in social and economic decline. We have a number of brownfield sites within that community that could easily be built on with affordable housing or housing in general, which would help that community tremendously. And yet legislation and the way it's enforced by our officers offers no flexibility to allow that to happen. And I think going forward, not just our authority, but all authorities in this country and the greater United Kingdom will have to be more flexible and allow buildings which are flood resilient to come forward. Because people who live on the coast, coastal plains, close to rivers and close to the shoreline, understand that you always live with the risk of being flooded, but you don't lose any sleep over it. It's just part and parcel of living in that coastal or in that river area, and something that we get on with quite happily. But as I say, going forward, I think we need to build in flexibility within the national policies and within the policies of our council, and a bit of flexibility with our officers as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Nigel. I know that's something that's you've discussed before and raised before, and I think we'll take that observation on board. I think clearly building in Conway is difficult. Say, you've got floodplain to the east, you've got National Park to the west. Our infrastructure isn't ideal. We're heavily reliant on the A55 for our east to west transport. A lot of our towns get very congested when that's not working. So it is a really important piece of work. It is difficult to find sites, and I think I really want to thank the officers for the detailed work they do put into actually identifying where these properties and houses need to go. And we're all conscious that it's the key to everything, having a roof over your head, isn't it, that you can afford in terms of your mental health, your health and your well-being. But, I do recognise what you say. Are there any other comments or observations, members? If not, are we happy to vote to propose the recommendations with F to recognise that the cabinet member will be involved? Can we show for in favour of that, please? Okay, so my apologies, Emily. We are now back to agenda item 12, which is the housing homelessness service change portfolio. It's approval of the local housing market assessment for 22 to 37 and pages 531 to 803.
Thank you, Leader. Okay, so this is another meaty report with lots of data in it. And the primary purpose of the report is it's obviously to seek your approval for the local housing market assessment 2002 to 2037, following the public consultation and the previous cabinet approval. This document will replace the interim local housing market assessment. I'm really trying hard not to use acronyms, but as this goes on, I'm definitely going to slip into acronyms. So I'm really sorry if I do. And it's been crafted following the Welsh Government's new guidelines and toolkit. It stands as a testament to our commitment to strategic planning and collaboration, both with internal and external stakeholders. This report's been had a really good airing at Economy and Place Overview and Scrutiny Committee, Leader. So I'm going to just go through quite briefly, as it was only last Thursday, so I don't want to just repeat everything that was said there. I must say, when I first saw the report and saw the numbers in it, I was quite taken aback. I think it's quite a sobering reminder of how much affordable housing really is needed throughout the whole of Conwy and how it hasn't been delivered previously. But that said, I do want to just remind members that this is the evidence-based document. It's not the strategic plan as to how we're going to deliver these numbers. That will come in subsequent reports. This evidence base will be used to inform multiple strategies, including our local housing strategy and the replacement local development plan, as well as others. So by adopting this robust evidence-based approach, we can then ensure that our housing strategies are responsive, inclusive and sustainable. This local housing market assessment is a product of the collaboration across the council departments and our housing partners. And moving forward, we'll continue to work with developers, registered social landlords and other stakeholders to maximise affordable housing delivery. We also welcome the input from Eryri National Park, and we acknowledge the unique challenges that are faced in the rural areas. Our public consultation was held from January the 29th to March the 11th this year and had 32 responses. These insights were really helpful in refining our local housing market assessment, and the amendments we've made following the consultation feedback can be found in 3.2 of the report. But in essence, the consultation revealed strong support for increasing affordable housing and adapted housing. Additionally, there was significant backing for bespoke accommodation for individuals with specific needs, which links really nicely in with our work with social services. However, some concerns were raised about the accuracy of the long-term estimates, which we acknowledge, and we are addressing this by committing to rewriting the local housing market assessment every 5 years and a refresh, taking a refresh periodically in between that, because we recognise that the housing situation is fluid and it does change frequently. So before I move on to the recommendations, Leader, I just want to thank the team for delivering such an in-depth report for us. Welsh Government released a new toolkit, which means the methodology for getting this data changed significantly. It is a good thing because it will mean that we're able to compare that data across local authorities, so we can benchmark how we're doing comparatively. But I'd really like to thank officers for all their efforts in producing this, and to the consultees for their input to ensure we get it right. It has been a huge piece of work, but it's been recognised by Welsh Government, and our report has been shared with other local authorities as an example of good practice because it links so well with our rapid rehousing policy. And as a result, Conwy have also been asked to be one of 3 local authorities taking part in a deep dive research project linking data and need to housing supply. So a huge well done to the team, in particular to Anna and Jude for delivering this. So I'd like to move the recommendations in 2.2 today, Leader. And it's that we approve the local housing market assessment as to use as an evidence base, that we approve the submission to Welsh Government, and that we delegate authority to be given to the Head of Strategic Housing in consultation with the Cabinet member to make minor changes should the toolkit or methodology be updated by Welsh Government. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, thanks, Emily. I completely agree. It's a fantastic piece of work. Huge amount of data in there. But whilst it's long and complex, it's really easy to read as well. You can extract the data you need and the inferences that you need to make from that. So I want to add my thanks to our officers for that. Are there any others?
So thank you very much. It is a massive piece of work, this. And I think members should remember that we will be rewriting our LHMA every 5 years and refreshing it, I think, once during that period, because this is bound to be a fluid situation and we need to react to changing circumstances. So just to flag that up, but I'm happy to second Councillor Emily, Leader.
Okay, Councillor Jeff, did you?
Yeah, Councillor Chris just stole my thunder. I was going to second that. This is a terrific piece of work. I came in fact, when there was a concern over affordable homes. I'm 100% behind it. I congratulate my colleague, both colleagues, because Aaron was involved partly in this at some time as well, I believe. Well done, everybody.
Okay, members. So there's no other comments or observations. We've had a proposer and the seconder. Can we show for in favour accepting this recommendation? Fantastic. Okay, so we're on agenda item 13. Unlucky for some, I guess. Infrastructure, transport and facilities portfolio. So it's the consultation report, Colwyn Bay Town Centre Traffic Management, Parking and Streetscape. You'll find that report on pages 804 to 848, and Councillor Cromwell will take us through the report.
Thank you, Leader. So the purpose of the report is to provide information on the response received to a public consultation on concept design for Colwyn Bay Town Centre regeneration and active travel improvements. The consultation report is included in Appendix A. The next steps for the project are to review the design and ensure alignment with the place plan objectives, to make changes to design to make account for consultation responses, and for further engagement with key stakeholders regarding specific aspects of the proposal. Construction of the actual proposal will be entirely dependent on securing future external funding. Now, this went to Economy and Place on May the 22nd, and following their recommendation is in front of us now for our consideration to take the report forward to go for the detailed designs. Now, as you see in 3.5, during the consultation period, a total of 1,645 comments were received from 439 individuals, plus responses from key stakeholders. Bay of Colwyn Town Council provided detailed feedback on specific elements of the proposal. The consultation report can be found in Appendix A, provides further information and analysis of the consultation. Now, as I said, the project forms part of the Colwyn Bay Investment and Recovery Plan and is a continuation of the town centre improvement proposals originally put forward for consultation in 2020. Now, this is an ongoing process of investment in Colwyn Bay that we have been working on over these years. And so therefore you look at 3.6 on page 806. Since the consultation, the Bay of Colwyn Place Plan was adopted in January 2024. Theme 4, getting around a connected Colwyn Bay. Colwyn includes the following objectives: improve ease of access between the town centre and the promenade, ensuring safe access to the beach for all, promote active travel and provide additional rest points, improve pedestrian vehicular signage and wayfinding opportunity to promote safe walking, cycling and tourist access, improve parking provision for everybody, tourists and local communities, improve traffic management to promote road safety, including the condition of roads and pavements, and 6, continue to follow Wales National Transport Policy whilst tailoring it to local needs and priorities. So in 3.7, you'll see the next steps of the project as recommended in the consultation report are as follows: review the design to ensure alignment with the place plan objectives, further engagement with key stakeholders regarding specific aspects of the proposal, make changes to design to take account of consultation responses, carry out impact assessment to ensure that the proposed design comply with regulations and standards, detailed traffic and road safety assessment to refine proposals related to road design, crossing and parking, prepare a final outline design and assessment of costs. Engagement with local members, stakeholders and public will continue throughout this period. Now, consultation, because the resource implications you see in item 6 or paragraph 6, there is the design and consultation to date has been fully funded by Welsh Government. Funding is also in place for the next stage of scheme design. Construction of the improvements will be entirely dependent on securing external grants funding. Actually, Dylan is here from our Highways Department. Are there any questions? As I said, this has been to economy and place scrutiny, and a recommendation that we move forward to the next stage, which is to do the design, finalise designs.
Okay, thanks, Gronwy. So I'll open it up to any questions. I think there was a couple of amendments though put forward by Economy and Place. So I'll just read them out because I've got them in front of me, Gronwy. So they added. So I'll read the whole thing actually. The Cabinet support the proposals for a change to the concept design of the Colwyn Bay Town Centre, traffic management, parking and streetscape brackets consultation report, so that the project can move forward to design stage, which will then be subject to further consultation with the local area forum central before any revised designs are presented to overview and scrutiny and Cabinet. So when are you happy? Obviously, we'd want to consult with the area forums and local members.
That will continue throughout the process and with key stakeholders as well.
Okay, so you're happy to propose the recommendation as put forward by scrutiny. Yeah, just for clarity. Okay, I'll open it up for any questions or observations, members. Councillor Shell.
Thanks very much, Leader. Thanks for that, Councillor Gronwy. You will recall I did email last week asking for this item to be deferred. As the chair of the local area forum central, we met on the 24th of May, which was unfortunately after Economy in Place considered this report and made the recommendations. We had an extra 2-hour meeting where all the comments of the members were brought together, and that is in a document that I sent to yourselves. We weren't told that it was coming back to Cabinet this quickly. There is also another document, the business owners of Colwyn Bay. This follows on your walkabout, Leader, along with Councillors Gronwy and Nigel and the local MP, David Jones, to meet the business owners. There is a report there compiled by Amanda Balance showing the comments of all the business owners. So missing from your deliberations today in your report pack is the comments of the LAF Central members, the report on what the business owners feel of this. Also, a fundamental loss in this is Colwyn Bay Town Council have not yet been consulted. It doesn't go to them until the 22nd, next Monday. And they're extremely put out that they haven't been consulted before this comes before yourselves today. And they would like that this is deferred so that they can meet with Dylan on Monday in the council meeting and be able to give their full comments on this. So I'm afraid that is an error in the report. They haven't been consulted. The fourth point is local members are down there as being consulted, Rue, Glyn, Arius and Colwyn. We haven't been asked for our comments on this report at all, so that's another, I'm afraid, error in that. You will also note this has now changed. It's called the Colwyn Bay Town Centre Traffic Management Plan, where actually this includes Old Colwyn and has a massive impact on the people of Old Colwyn because there are proposed 5 roundabouts on the Marine roundabout, which we all know is extremely problematic at the moment. So I'm asking that you could possibly defer this today till the Town Council have met next week and until all those reports that I mentioned, particularly the business people's take on this, that you defer it because, you know, you haven't got all the full facts in front of you to make this decision. So that's what I'm asking for Cabinet to do today. And I think Councillor Chris Hughes is here as well to, as the Vice Chair of the Central Forum. Thank you, Leader.
Okay, so obviously we had some correspondence about this, Cheryl. The Town Council were part of the original consultation and their response is in the report. My reading of this report is it's moving on to the next stage. We're not being asked to make a decision on any specific designs. We're not being asked to make a decision on any rerouting. This report for me is about taking on board the consultation that's been done, taking on people's views and looking again essentially at bringing forward new plans. We're not making a decision on anything other than whether we progress to the next stage. So whilst I absolutely take your point about consultation, I see that as being the next stage of this moving forward. I'm not quite sure what I'm missing because 3.7 is quite clear. It's about looking at the place plan, looking at the consultation, engaging with stakeholders, drawing up new plans, and then bringing that back through the democratic process for members to approve. So I'm not quite sure why we couldn't do those two processes simultaneously, where we give approval to move to the next stage and then engagement starts for the Town Council and the Central Area Forum, and we move forward rather than delaying that by 2 weeks, because I don't know materially what I'm going to change. There's clearly elements people like in here, clearly elements people don't like. So we need to look again essentially. So I'm not sure how delaying this by 2-3 weeks is going to actually change the next decision we make, which is to go to the next stage. So it's a genuine question. I'm not trying to be awkward. I just don't see what the benefit would be.
No. I understand that, Leader. It's just that you have, I'm sure when you read in full the comments, when Cabinet members read it, they will realise the genuine safety concerns, the economic concerns, and I'm sure Councillor Nigel will want to expand on his discussions with the business members that he met in Penryn Road, who were hugely against this, and of course there are comments from engineers about the safety when the A55 shut. So it is debatable whether this would actually go ahead. I know there's very strong feeling in Town Council, and I think democracy would not be served by pushing this through today without all the facts. But I'm expecting Councillor Chris Hughes to further cover, as a Town Councillor as well, to further cover this. So thank you.
Okay, let's bring Chris in.
Thanks, Chair. I have some sympathy with the points you make. However, there's a key issue here which I think is fundamental. When we've been talking to residents, when we're talking to people, their view is, well, you'll do what you want anyway, and you won't listen to us.
Chris, we can't quite hear you.
Sorry, your sound's gone really poor. I don't know if you can.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yeah, that's better now. Thanks, Chris.
Right, okay. There is a perception amongst the public that they'll do what they want to do anyway, they won't listen to us. And this is part of why we're asking for the deferment today, so we can show the facts that you've had all that documentation that you don't have in front of you today, that you can consider that the Town Council's views will have been considered, and because if we don't do that, people say, well, whatever we try to say or however we try to control the narrative, the response will be, well, they made these decisions without even reading the documentation from us, and that does cause me some concern, both for the reputation of this authority, but also for us as members who are trying to represent our communities. If we are also seen as not doing that and not ensuring that the public's views are fully taken on board at every stage of the decision-making process, then that undermines democracy and it undermines credibility. So I do, on this occasion, so it's not very often I agree with Cheryl, but on this occasion I do think we're only asking for 2 weeks. You have another cabinet meeting in 2 weeks' time, and I don't think it's too much to ask for that you defer it on occasion. It doesn't technically stop anything happening. It just means that you make that decision in 2 weeks' time when all that documentation will be in front of you.
Chris, Chris Cater in the chamber. Do you want to come in?
Thank you, Leader. And I listened to what Councillors Cheryl and Chris have said. I'm not a Colwyn Bay member, so I'm looking at this from the outside. But since I got elected in 2004, this has been highly controversial. And I think this is the third study we've had in front of us. And we're just seeking to go through the detailed design stage. So the first thing I did when I saw this report was go to the Station Road part of it, because I know that's always been highly controversial, whether it should be pedestrianised, pedestrian safety, whether there should be access to the shops, whether there should be one way, or whether it should be open completely as it was when I was a boy in the 60s and 70s, when you could just drive there, park there and use the shops. And there were a good number of high quality shops on Station Road in those days. So I looked at the assessment of comments, and I note here that 42.6% expressed a negative sentiment and 40.5% held a positive view. So that just illustrates to me how the public are completely split on this. And I think it would be useful to go to the detailed design stage and give them some actual plans to look at and vote on. I mean, we're not going to do anything. Nothing is predetermined, prejudged. We haven't come to any complete conclusion on this. We haven't since 2004. So really, we've got to get it right, and we've got to have a better support than against the proposals. So I hear what you say, Leader, and I must admit I am perplexed how a 2 week or so delay will take place, will benefit the situation, because I think that people are going to have to see the detailed design before they can really make a decision on this. So that's where I'm coming from, Leader.
Okay, I think it would be useful to go through 3.7. So we've had a consultation. I think we've had a mixture of responses, a good response. I think, a large number of people have responded to that. In light of that, 3.7 states we're going to review the design to ensure alignment with the place plan, because obviously the place plan is new, and that they need to be engaged in what they feel. So that's going to happen. The second part is further engagement with key stakeholders regarding specific aspects of the proposal. Again, Cheryl, I did attend the businesses, and there were some concerns. The report was really clear. There were concerns about the loss of. We're then going to make changes to the design to take account of the consultation responses. I think the only constant theme for me through the consultation was concern about parking. There were lots of people for other bits and against other bits, but parking was highlighted, and I think that will be recognised. Then going to carry out an impact assessment to ensure the proposed design complies with regulations and standards. So again, that's about safety and making sure that what their suggestion is compliant, which again is very, very sensible. Detailed traffic and road safety assessments to refine proposals related to road design, crossing and parking. So, again, that's a very, very sensible thing. Engagement with local members, stakeholders and the public. And then you're at the stage when you've done all that where you can bring some concrete plans forward, because we don't have that at the moment. So it's a lot more work to kind of get something that the majority of people will support. There's clearly going to be an awful lot more engagement, and I still don't get why waiting 2 weeks to hear people saying there's bits of this I like, bits I don't like. We need to think again. I don't see how that's going to improve the process, because that essentially is the process, that we need to go back out and engage and consult and do a bit more work on this. So that, yeah, I'll bring you back in, sure, but that's where I'm struggling.
Thank you, Leader. Well, really, the comments outline the concerns of the people we are elected to represent. And I think it would be a mistake to move to the design stage when there is such detailed comments from a wide members of the public that have contacted us as the elected members. And I think that, you know, it's public money we're going to be using to pay the ERF consultancy to draw up these plans. And I really think that we should be listened to, local members should be listened to on this, and that you should have all those factors. I said those 4 different sets of views before you make that decision. Secondly, I think it would help if Councillor Nigel outlined business concerns. And thirdly, I'd like it minuting on the momentous occasion of Councillor Chris and I agreeing with each other. I think that's worthy of a mention. Thank you.
So maybe if I could get some offers of advice here. Clearly, what 3.7 sets out to me, there's going to be more conversations with stakeholders and with groups before you actually get your pens out and start deciding what a design would look like. Is that's how I read it? Dylan, are you able to?
Yeah, that's correct, Chair. Yeah, as part of the detailed design process, it's a constant engagement exercise, isn't it, with key stakeholders such as landowners, funders, you know, town council who are working through their place plans. So as been mentioned in the reports, they both need to align with each other and whatever other work is going on in the area as well. So, you know, it's not a case that we've consulted with the public on the concept design and that's it, the door is shut and we're just going to move into a dark room and do our stuff, and then that's it. That's the end of the engagement process. That's not the case. You know, it's a never, as I say, it's a constant engagement process during the detailed design, a different process as well.
So with that in mind, if we voted today to move to the next stage, could you sort of commit to having the meeting with the local area forum, having the meeting with the town council, taking their views on at that early stage before you kind of proceed further along the path, rather than waiting 2 weeks and then coming back here to have that same decision? Is that possible?
Yeah, I think we were invited to the last area forum, and as the councillor noted, yeah, there's a meeting with the town council next week, which I've been invited, which I'll be presenting the findings of the report, and you know, taken on board the comments that we'll receive from that as well. But I think it needs to be made clear that the consultation report from Wilds does demonstrate that we are listening to the public's concerns and public's views on this, because the report is in 2 parts really, where you've got the initial data sets and the results, which is black and white really. It is what it is. And then it follows up with recommendations of where the concept designs could be changed to reflect the views of the feedback we received from the members of the public, which is exactly what the consultation should be doing. And you know, there are key issues or key matters of concerns, which, as you pointed out previously, parking being one of them, where a review of design will try to overcome those concerns.
Okay, thanks, Dylan. That's very useful. I've got Councillor Nigel.
Thank you, Leader. Well, as you know yourself, we visited Colwyn Bay at the request of David Jones, the MP. And what I heard from the business owners was fear about the proposed plans. I think the officers seem to be putting great weight on the public consultation of 448 replies out of a population of 31,000. So I don't think you can put any weight on the public consultation at all. And if anything, I think it's misleading. I share the concerns of the businesses. As a business owner myself, you know, having access for your residents to park and easy access to your business is a key thing. And I think you've only got to look at Station Road in Colwyn Bay, which I'm sure ticked all the boxes, like this consultation seems to have ticked all the boxes, has been catastrophic to that street in Colwyn Bay. So I can't support this as it is. I know that it says it's going to have further engagement with local stakeholders and the public, but that has already been very, very weak. And my question really is, what is the problem in delaying this? Or even, why not even pull it? Because I don't think that the local elected members want it. It doesn't appear that the local area forum want it. And it appears to me that the businesses don't want it either. So I'm really struggling here. And unless, you know, Highways can come up with a reason why we have to proceed, I just can't support it. I'm sorry, but I think the evidence is very, very weak and doesn't hold any water.
So I want to make clear, you know, we absolutely have to consult. We have to absolutely take notice of what the consultation process is, whether you disagree with it or not. You know, that is a part of our democratic processes, and I
think the evidence is.
I want to be really clear about that. I'll bring in Councillor Cromwell.
Yeah, I was on that visit as well with David Jones, and he took us to a few individual businesses that had obviously had a preconception of what was suitable for their particular needs. And in order to go forward with this, we need to take it on board all the consultation there's been, and in moving forward to continue the discussion with stakeholders and come up with designs that they can actually look at. To be consulting on something without a design in front of you seems to be totally ineffective, in my opinion. Without those designs in place, how can people form an opinion? And now I'm perfectly aware that David Jones' opinion was that the car is king in Conway, in Colwyn Bay, and we're moving forward to look at safer ways and modes of transport within our conurbations and within our central towns. And the car is no longer king. We have to be realistic and move forward, you know. And this is a constant. I've been involved with Colwyn Bay regeneration for about 20 odd years. And we're moving slowly forward into bringing that town into a place where hopefully the business will be attracted and they will invest. The amount of money that we have drawn down for Colwyn Bay is phenomenal in these last 10 years. And just looking at the promenade in itself. So this is a further step forward in bringing designs to the residents and to the businesses so that they can move forward in a constructive way. And there will be further debate, discussion and consultation as is mentioned in 3.7. So delaying it, I see no benefit whatsoever. What are people going to consult on without having some designs in front of them to look at?
Thank you, Romy. So I think we need to, I want to summarise now. Engagement, that engagement will take place before there's any looking at designs. We've gone through scrutiny. Scrutiny have made a recommendation with an amendment that there is further consultation in local area forum before any revised designs are presented to review and scrutiny. I think that's an absolutely fair observation. I think that should happen by right. I don't see any advantage to delaying this for 2 weeks, and those conversations can be had prior to move forward. This has been funded by Welsh Government. Clearly, we need to get to some designs out there that people can look at and make a decision on. I'm not being asked to make a decision on a design today. I'm just being asked to make a decision on moving the process forward. So I'm comfortable with that. And on that basis, I'll second the recommendations that were made by scrutiny. And then we need to see what develops further down the line in terms of whether people want it or don't want it. Well, we'll see. And in terms of whether it's funded by Welsh Government, again, we'll see. We might get everybody in the world wants it and Welsh Government doesn't want to fund it. So it's part of a process. And this is the only way we can move to a stage where we can sit and make proper decisions based on what's in front of us rather than hypotheticals, I guess. Emily, do you want to come in?
Yeah, I think I've answered my own question, but I just want to check a process thing. Because we're being asked to support the recommendations that have come from scrutiny. If there isn't a call-in process, so if we send this forward, they're not going to call it back in, and then we're going to delay it back, like inadvertently delay it even further, I guess.
No, Leader. The proposal and the second is for the recommendation from scrutiny, exactly word for word.
Okay. Jeff, do you want to come back in? Well, where do you vote? Yes. First, Jeff.
Okay, thank you, Leader. I get the impression that there are fears of people not being listened to or being heard. across parties and within the community. I've lived in Colin Bay for 47 years and it has gone down. It's becoming actually somewhere to go because the beach has changed that, and there's going to be a need for this kind of design infrastructure to be put in place for the benefit of all. I welcome it. I also welcome the fact that there's the questioning and the engagement that's taking place. I think it's vital, in fact, and I think given the fact that we do listen to them, and that's what's being agreed, as I understand, and in fact that the Highways Department will take that on board, I fully support what's going forward, Chair.
Okay, so we've had a proposer, members, we've had a seconder. I'll take this to vote. For those in favour, can you show, please? For those that are against? Okay, Nigel, so that vote is carried. So thank you, members. And we'll move on to agenda item 14, which sits in the Children, Families and Safeguarding portfolio. It's the foster friendly policy. It's on pages 849 to 859. So Liz, you taking this one? All right, Liz, could you put?
He usually helps me out and he hasn't helped me out.
I lost concentration.
I shall start again. I'm very sorry. I'm very pleased to bring both of these reports to Cabinet today. And this first report is to approve the foster-friendly policy. The role of a foster carer is critical in providing children with that much needed stability, love, comfort and security. Whilst the team work with families to sustain the home environment where safe and appropriate to do so, Conwy needs to significantly increase the number of foster carers to support those children who are our most vulnerable. Enabling children and young people to remain in their local area, keeping siblings together and providing a nurturing home environment. This is paramount. Is intended to remove barriers for Conwy employees and be a positive recruitment strategy to attract foster carers for Foster Wales Conwy. If adopted, the policy would allow Conwy employees to claim up to 5 days of special leave, and this is to all prospective and existing foster carers, both general and connected persons. Becoming a foster-friendly authority would also ensure we are compliant with Foster Wales' national target for all local authorities to be a foster-friendly employer by 2025. Whilst being one of the largest employers in the county, Conwy County Borough Council would be leading the way in encouraging other employers, companies and businesses in becoming foster-friendly if this policy is approved. We had a very good discussion in Finance and Resources on July. The committee recommended to Cabinet that the foster-friendly policy be approved and that the separate special leave policy be amended to reflect the revisions in the foster-friendly policy. So may I propose that Cabinet approve this report, please?
Okay, thanks Liz for taking us through. Members, any comments or observations? Julie and then Nigel.
If I may just say that Stephanie is here and Kathy is online.
Okay, thanks very much.
Yeah, this is a no-brainer. I mean, it really is. Anything that we can do to encourage and help people to become fosters. I hear it all the time. People kind of think, could I do it? Should I do it? Can I? Will I be able to manage it? With the workload, with everything else. So this sends the message that it makes things easier for those who are employed by Conwy, but it also sends the message that this is a priority for us, which it has been for years, but it's just about any drum we can bang, isn't it? To say, this is a wonderful thing to do. The outcomes for children who are in a loving, as you say, love is the word that we use a lot now, which is great because that's what it's about, isn't it? A loving family that these young people who are often very vulnerable can go and feel that is incredibly important. So yeah, anything, and I know you're going to share another report in a minute, which I massively support as well. It's just anything we can do to encourage people and support them to move forward, to look after our children. Yeah, as I said, it's a no-brainer. Thanks, Leader.
Thanks, Julie. Nigel, Jonathan?
Yeah, I totally agree with what has been said. I think you can't underestimate the work that they do on behalf of our county as foster parents, and I think it's right and proper that as a county council we support them, and I fully support this. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. I've got Jeff and Chris. I'll get Jeff first, then Chris, and Emily. My comments, right, Amish?
Yeah, I fully support this, Leader. I also hope that it sets the scene for other employers in the area who might think similar. There's nothing to say that they shouldn't be considering similar to this. In fact, in due course, I would very much welcome that.
Okay, thanks, Chris. I've lost count. Sorry, apologies.
Yeah, I support this. I really don't think that the time spent on training reviews and meetings and so on, meeting attendance, should come out of the employee's ordinary annual leave allowance. It was interesting. I was at the Overview and Scrutiny Committee, and it was interesting because Amanda Hughes was asked to give a calculation of the financial savings, and she couldn't, because we really don't know how many of the residential placements, which are so expensive to the local authority, what the reduction will be in those residential placements. We know that the increased cost will come to us in covering the employees' 5 additional days of leave, but some employees will be in roles that don't require that cover. So it is very difficult to put a figure on it. I'm looking at Gareth here, but yes, the savings should be substantial. But that's the main thing, is that we're supporting our own vulnerable children.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
There. So, members, I think we're all incredibly supportive of this, and thanks, Steph, for bringing this forward. So, we had a proposer. Did we have a formal seconder? Councillor Penny? Are we sure we're in favour, members? Okay, and the second part of this is on a similar theme. It's implementing new incentives for foster carers, and that's on page 860 to 867. So back to you, Liz.
As discussed previously, the aspirational aim of Conway's placement and commissioning strategy is to provide enough homes to meet the individual and diverse needs of children who are looked after. Over the next 5 years, we aim to increase in-house capacity and reduce our dependency on commissioning out-of-area independent fostering and residential placements. This report seeks approval for the introduction of new incentives to enhance the Council's offer to Foster Wales Conway foster carers. In order to increase the number of foster carers required to support Conway's children and young people, the local authority needs to provide a competitive offer to encourage more people to consider this special role. In 2023, Cabinet approved a minimum fee increase for foster carers in addition to relevant fees. The Council currently provides Fit Conway membership as an incentive, and this new paper is to propose an extension to the incentives with the introduction of up to 100% discretionary relief in council tax for Conway's foster carers. It is also proposed in this paper that foster carers will be given a choice of 6 different Conway County Borough Council parking permits for free to Wales Conway carers. The council tax discount will result in a reduction in actual income for the council, whilst initially this will be an additional pressure which can be funded from within the council tax budget. In subsequent years, the aim is to be funded from the reduction in independent placement costs for children looked after, as we know, are huge costs. However, it is worth noting that the issue of car parking permits is more of an opportunity cost, as a foster carer may not otherwise purchase a permit or incur parking fees, and therefore there is no direct impact on the council's budget. Foster carers will be given the option to choose a permit that covers the promenade and street areas, or for all council car parks to suit their needs. So Finance and Resources considered the report on 10th of July, and the committee recommended to Cabinet to approve up to 100% discretionary relief in council tax where the foster carer is on the Conwy County Borough Council tax register, and subject to council's approval of the revised council tax discretionary relief policy, which is going to council this Thursday, be approved. Foster care is different Conwy County Borough Council parking permits for free. May I propose that Cabinet approve this report, please? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Liz. As finance portfolio, obviously it affects my portfolio in so much as we recognise there will be initial cost to this, but I absolutely see this as a spend to save. Essentially, it's a way of driving down our service pressures and improving the service that we're offered to our young people. It's clearly something we'll keep an eye on, we'll monitor in terms of the recruitment and retention of foster workers, but it also sends a signal out about how much we value the work that they do. And I think it's something that, yeah, you know, if it proves successful, which we all absolutely hope it will, that's something we could look to sort of elaborate on and look to see whether there's other drivers that we could make to provide the best possible start to young people and drive down the eye-watering costs of out-of-county homes, which we know do not produce as good a result for the young people as staying in the county with established foster carers. So I'm very happy to second this, and I'm really glad again to see it coming forward. Steph, I've got Councillor Emily.
Yeah, I just want to say I'm, really supportive of this. I'm glad that we've got the, the previous report that came through as well as this one here today. I don't think I appreciated just how many kind of private agencies there are as well that offer this kind of thing. And this is something that we can offer uniquely as a council to really try and draw people in. I don't think I'd fully appreciated that until you and your team had explained that, Steph. But I think anything that we can do to encourage foster carers, even I would imagine, even if it encourages 2 more foster carers, that will make the money back, in huge sums, rather than having to place those children out of county. And it's not just about that, is it? It's about keeping our young people in communities and in their home, because and like the outcomes that come through that, because you just see, from, I suppose, from a housing point of view, you see what happens when people have been let down by a system and if they've been bounced around, particularly in out of county placements, they find the way back into the system at some point else. And to break that cycle by doing something as simple as this, to be able to give one more, hopefully it'll be more than that, but a child a chance to stay here by us being able to do something really simple within the council. I think it's an absolute no-brainer, and the more that we can do to help promote foster carers and keep our children home, the better.
Hey, Emily. Councillor Cheryl online.
Thanks, Leader. Thanks very much for that, Liz. And my feelings when we discussed this in FROSC last week. We need to go much higher with this. We absolutely do. The fees that we pay, we need to look at substantially increasing them to attract and retain our foster carers. This needs a whole look at, a whole system review, because we need to be outstripping what the private agencies are paying. It will pay for itself in terms of happier children, more settled, nearer to home, and savings in terms of the massive fees we pay to private agencies and private homes. And also, of course, we've got the threat of the Welsh Government rebalancing care, which is at the moment skewing everything so badly. Our private agencies are moving over the border into England to escape the what the Welsh Government are trying to do. And unfortunately, it's just making places more scarce and pushing the cost of everything up. It's causing great problems in the adoption and fostering world, as I know through my work on the adoption panel. And I ask that we look at this as soon as possible. This is a great step to start with, but we need to go much further. So thank you.
Thanks, Rob. Councillor Liz.
Thank you, Councillor Cheryl. I'd just like to say thank you very much indeed to both Kathy McKenzie and to Steph as Head of Children's Services for really making a big difference here. And we are only on one step of the journey, Councillor Cheryl. And between and working with Steph, I know we can really make a difference. So I thank you all for your considerations this afternoon and your full support, because I just find this work, I just love it, and it means so much to me. So I thank you all for your support today.
Okay, members, I think we've had a proposer and we've had a seconder. If there's no other comments, can we go to the vote, please? Wonderful. Okay, so that concludes the meeting. Members, 867 pages to read is a lot of work.